The lobby was buzzing with chatter, the clacking of expensive heels echoing against the marble floor as 33 well-dressed candidates lined up to be interviewed. Every woman wore a tailored suit or designer dress, and the men sported pressed suits with polished shoes that gleamed under the lights. Amidst the sea of perfection stood a young woman with trembling hands, her old canvas shoes worn at the edges, the left one carrying a tear that revealed a peak of her sock. She kept her head low, clutching the strap of her simple handbag as if it were her lifeline. Her name was Aisha. When she walked in, whispers started like wildfire. One man chuckled loudly enough for others to hear. "Is she lost? This isn't a charity house, it's a corporate interview," he sneered. Another woman smirked, leaning toward her friend. "Look at her shoes, torn, faded. Did she walk here from the slums?" Aisha's face burned with shame, but she stood still, forcing herself not to leave. She had borrowed her neighbor's black trousers and worn-out blazer for this interview. Her shoes were the only pair she owned. They had carried her through university, through endless walks to part-time jobs, and through nights when she couldn't afford bus fare. But today, those shoes screamed her poverty louder than she ever could. The laughter didn't stop when she sat down. One man even took out his phone, pretending to snap a picture of her shoes. She wanted to run. She wanted to melt into the ground and disappear. But then she remembered her mother's tired face last night, whispering before bed. "Win this chance, Aisha. Don't give up no matter what they say. You are more than what you wear." So she lifted her chin, hiding the sting of tears behind a mask of calm determination. The interviews began. Each candidate was called one by one into the glass-walled conference room at the far end. People came out looking crushed or nervous, and the panel inside, 5 directors and the CEO himself, remained unreadable. As the hours passed, Aisha's stomach twisted. She had skipped breakfast to save the last bit of bread for her younger brother. Now hunger gnawed at her, but she refused to let her weakness show. She had one shot. Finally, her name was called. The room seemed colder than the lobby. Across the long table sat 4 stern directors, but at the center sat a man who radiated quiet authority, Mr. Rahman, the CEO of one of the fastest-growing firms in the country. His suit was flawless, his presence commanding. He didn't look at her shoes. He looked straight into her eyes. "Miss Aisha," one director began, not hiding his skepticism, "why should we hire you over these highly qualified candidates? You don't exactly fit the part." The words cut deep, but she steadied her voice. "Because I have lived the part, sir." They raised their brows. She continued, her tone steady yet passionate. "I know I don't look like much right now. I don't have designer clothes or polished heels, but I know what it means to fight for survival. I've worked 3 part-time jobs to pay my tuition. I've led student projects without resources, convincing people with nothing but determination. I've solved problems others walked away from because giving up was never an option for me. I may not fit your image of success today, but I understand hard work better than anyone else here." The panel exchanged glances. One director asked sharply, "And if we put you in a room with high-profile clients who judge appearances first, how will you manage?" She hesitated, then glanced at her torn shoes, and a sad smile touched her lips. "Maybe they'll laugh just like others did today. But if they give me 5 minutes, I'll make them forget the shoes. I'll make them listen to the person wearing them, because appearances fade. What lasts is what you bring to the table, your vision, your ideas, your willpower. And those can't be stitched or polished." For a moment, silence filled the room. Even the directors who had looked ready to dismiss her were caught off guard. But it was the CEO who spoke last. His deep voice carried weight. "Thank you, Miss Aisha. That will be all." She walked out, her knees weak. In the lobby, the candidates smirked again. "Did they laugh you out already?" one asked. She ignored them and sat quietly, though her heart sank. Maybe her words weren't enough. Maybe she was foolish to believe she stood a chance among these people. Hours later, the receptionist appeared with an envelope. "The CEO has made his decision," she announced. The 33 candidates leaned forward eagerly. One name was read aloud. Aisha. Gasps echoed. Laughter turned to shock. The others looked at her in disbelief. Some muttered under their breath, refusing to accept it. But Aisha barely heard them. Her hands shook as she took the envelope, inside of which was a letter signed personally by the CEO. It said, "Out of 33, you are the one who reminded me what true leadership means. Welcome aboard." Tears blurred her vision. She pressed the letter to her chest, her mother's words ringing in her ears. That evening, as she walked home with her torn shoes scraping against the pavement, she didn't feel poor anymore. She felt powerful. She felt chosen. The next morning, she entered the office as the newest executive trainee. The same people who had mocked her shoes avoided her gaze now. She held her head high, not out of pride, but out of quiet strength. Later, she learned why the CEO had chosen her. Years ago, before building his empire, he too had walked into his first interview wearing shoes with holes. No one had laughed at him then, but he had never forgotten the fear of being judged by appearances. When he saw Aisha, he recognized that same fire in her eyes, the fire that no torn shoes could hide. Months passed and Aisha worked harder than anyone else. She stayed late, learned fast, and proved her worth again and again. Her ideas brought results, her leadership inspired teams, and soon even those who had mocked her began to respect her. One day, during a major presentation with international clients, Aisha stood at the head of the room. She wore a modest but elegant suit now, and yes, she had new shoes. But as she spoke confidently, leading the discussion, no one remembered what she wore. They only saw the brilliance of her mind, the strength of her spirit. Afterward, as the CEO shook her hand, he whispered, "Never forget those torn shoes. They'll remind you where you came from and why you will never stop rising." Aisha smiled, her eyes glistening. She would never forget. Because the torn shoes that once made her feel small were now the symbol of her greatest victory. And so her story spread, not as a tale of pity, but as a testament to resilience. That no matter how people laugh at you, no matter how broken your shoes or your circumstances may be, if you carry courage in your heart and determination in your soul, you can walk into any room and win. Because success doesn't begin with what you wear, it begins with who you are.